This Christmas with Kaylee's family was different. Marcus really did take part. He and his 7-year-old nephew, Danny, played with Legos to make complicated spaceships. He helped his 10-year-old niece Emma with a puzzle. He thought Kelly's husband, Richard's joke were terrible and laughed at them. He was there in a way he hadn't been in years. What happened to you? Kelly asked after the kids had gone to bed on Christmas night. They were in a living room with mugs of hot chocolate. You're not the same, not as heavy. Marcus thought about telling her everything about Caleb, the Covenant, about civilizations from other planets and friendships that can't happen. But he chose a simpler truth. I got a friend, someone who knew what it was like to feel stuck in your own past. Someone who told me that being alone doesn't mean being safe. Kelly said, I'm so glad, with tears in her eyes. I thought we had lost you. You almost did, but I'm back now, really back. Caleb was waiting on the porch when Marcus got back to his cabin 3 years later. The alien looked upset, and its pattern changed colors quickly. They know, Caleb said right away. The Covenant has found out that I have been talking to you without permission. There is a group coming. When? 7 of your days. Marcus' old fight instinct came back to him. Then we have a week to get ready. Come on in. We have to work. They got ready for the next week. Marcus got in touch with people he had served within the military, journalists he had met, and scientists who looked into the possibility of life on other planet. Many people thought he was insane. A few were interested. One person who believed him right away was Sarah Chen, a reporter who had covered the war. Sarah said over a video call, if you're telling the truth, this is the story of the century. I'll get you help if you're having a breakdown. No matter what, I'm going to Colorado. At the same time, Caleb started to gather information, proof that the Covenant doesn't understand what connection really means. There are many examples from different worlds where being alone caused things to stop moving and then fall apart. Times when different species work together to make amazing progress. Caleb said, the Watchers think we keep knowledge, but we've been so busy recording the universe that we haven't really understood it. Connection does not distract from wisdom, it is the base of the wisdom. Can you send this to your people before they get here? Yes, but they won't pay attention to it. Data does not question belief. Experience is the only thing that does. Then we give them an experience they can't forget. Sarah came with a camera crew on the 6th day. Marcus told the story on the film about how he was alone, how his spirit slowly died, and how the alien who saved him by learning to care. Caleb appeared on camera, and its light was captured in digital clarity. It talked about the Covenant's past and its failures. Caleb told the camera, for 500 years, I thought I was doing something important, but I was just living. Marcus Webb taught me the difference between being alive and just being. This is what the Covenant has lost. This is what I want to get back. The video was raw, sad, no doubt about it. Sarah said she would keep it until the right time, but she would let it go if anything happened to Marcus or Caleb. They came on the 7th day. 3 ships came down from the night sky and were visible to the naked eye as they broke through the atmosphere. They landed in the Marcus field, in sleek ships that looked like they were folding space around them. 3 watchers came out of each ship, for a total of 9. They all had the same glowing skin and tall, graceful body as Caleb. But these watchers were not the same. Their patterns stayed the same, not changing, cold in a way that Caleb had never really felt before. The leader stepped up. Marcus and Caleb stood on the porch, ready for whatever came next. The leader said, I am Nathus, High Arbiter of the Covenant. And the voice had no warmth or inflection. Watcher Caleb, you are being accused of the worst crime. You have become emotionally attached to something you are watching. You let your feelings get in the way of your duty. You have broken sacred wars that have kept our civilization going for thousands of years. I have, Caleb said in a calm voice. I would do it again. The watchers who were there were shocked. It was unheard of for someone to be so defiant. You condemn yourself? Nethys said. No, Caleb said. I set myself free, and I dare the Covenant to look at what we really have become. Marcus moved forward. With all due respect, High Arbiter, you came from far away to judge my friend. But have you thought about the fact that your covenant might need to be judged? Person has no right to question. I'm not asking for authority. I'm giving you a different point of view. You all are so scared of feeling that you've convinced yourselves you're better than it. But I've been with Caleb for months. I saw an old being find happiness, laughter, friends, and a reason to live. And guess what? It didn't make Caleb less strong. It gave Caleb more strength, more helpful, more alive. Your covenant didn't make you wise. It made people scared. You don't know our history, another watcher said. Maybe not all of it, but I know what trauma is. I get why you would want to shut down to protect yourself. I get that you can build walls so high that you forget what you were trying to protect. I've been there, and I can tell you that life isn't worth living if you can't connect with others. It's like dying slowly, but still having a heartbeat. Nethys looked at Caleb. You've let this person poison your mind? You will come back with us. Get recalibrated. Your mind will work properly again. You mean you will wipe out who I've become? Caleb said. You'll kill the part of me that learned to care. We will bring you back to your purpose. No, Caleb said with complete confidence. I refuse. The watchers who were there stepped back. It was impossible to say no. Not possible. The covenant were final. Then you chose exile, Nathan said. You will be thrown out, taken away from your station. You will be alone and cut off from our people, from the rest of your life. Marcus saw peace in Caleb's bright eyes as he looked at him. I won't walk around by myself. I have found something much more valuable than the covenant. I have made a friend, a goal, a reason to live that goes beyond just watching. If this is exile, then I'd rather be exiled than in your cold eternity. Marcus felt so much emotion that it almost made his knees buckle. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. You showed me that some things are worth fighting for, something worth giving up. One of these is it. Nathas was about to say something else when Sarah and her crew came out of the trees with cameras. Hi, Arbiter Nathas, Sarah called out. I am Sarah Chen from Earth News Network. Would you like to explain why your society punishes people who choose to connect with others instead of being alone? And can you tell me how this helps us understand the galaxy better? The watchers stopped. They didn't think there would be any witnesses. No documentation was expected. Nethys said coldly, "This is not your business, human." "Yes, it is, because you're on Earth, in my species, territory, trying to punish someone for being friends with a human. And this is very important to us. And the world is about to find out what your covenant really means." For the first time, Marcus saw doubt cross Nethys's face. The High Arbiter thought it would be easy to get. Instead, they had to deal with beings exposed, being questioned, and the start of a challenge that couldn't be ignored. "This isn't over," Nethys said at last. "No," Caleb agreed. "It's only the beginning. We will be ready when your covenant is ready to see what we have built here and what connection can do. But we won't be quiet. We will not give up. And we won't stop showing the world that your cold promises don't mean anything next to warm hearts." The watchers went back to their ships. Marcus and Caleb stood together as the ships took off. They didn't move until the ships disappeared into the night sky. "Well," Marcus finally said, "that turned out better than I thought." Caleb laughed, and Marcus loved the sound of the bells. "We have made enemies who are very strong." "Sure, but you've also made a strong point." Marcus smiled. "Also, remember that the odds are against us." "My specialty," Caleb said. "Our specialty now," Marcus agreed. The story spread quickly. The video was everywhere in just few days. Scientists, philosophers, politicians, and regular people all talked about what it meant. The first contact with humans was friendly, not hostile. Other species in the galaxy started to hear about the Watcher, who chose to connect with others instead of the Covenant. The waves were getting bigger. At the heart of it all were two people who had saved each other by being brave enough to care. The world changed in the blink of an eye. Marcus' cabin, which used to be a place of solitude, became a place of pilgrimage. Scientists, journalists, politicians, and regular people all went to Ridgemont to meet the veteran and the alien who had started a worldwide conversation. Marcus said, "This is crazy," as he looked through binoculars at the growing tent at the edge of his property. "There must be 500 people out there." 573, Caleb said, looking out of the window. "And more are coming every hour." "Your kind is very curious." "Curious is one word of it. It might be more accurate to say invasive." But not all of the attention was bad. Scientists from NASA, the European Space Agency, and the universities all over the world asked for formal meetings. Diplomats wanted to set rules for how to deal with other planets. Researchers wanted to learn more about friendship between different species, and philosophers talked about what it would mean for a civilization to be based on hiding emotions. Sarah Chen became their unofficial spokesperson, handling the media circus like a pro, thanks to her years of experience reporting on wars. She planned a press conference for the end of the week. Sarah said during a planning meeting in Marcus' now crowded cabin, "You two are going to change everything." Kelly had come to help and put things back in order. Richard was in charge of the perimeter. Danny and Emma even had jobs, helping to sort through the thousands of letters and emails that came in every day. "We are just two people who became friends," Marcus said. "You're a symbol," Sarah said, "of what is possible, of what we could be if we looked past our own limits." Caleb had been quiet, and its patterns were changing in a thoughtful way. "Sarah is right. Whether we meant to do or not, we have become representatives of philosophies that questions not only the covenant, but also many of Earth's own divisions." "What do you mean?" Kelly asked. "Does your species have trouble connecting too? You put up walls between races, religions, and countries. You are afraid of people who are different from you. If you accepted differences, Instead of being afraid of them, Marcus and I are what could happen. People all over the world were interested in the press conference. Marcus stood in front of the cameras and microphones with Gaelith next to him and spoke from the heart. 3 months ago, I was a man waiting to die, he said. I had convinced myself that I was done, that I had given everything I had in the war and had nothing left. I was wrong. I had one more thing to give, the desire to connect, to be open, to let someone in. He pointed to Caleb. This being, when farther than any of us can imagine, saw countless worlds, and somehow chose to break the most important rule of their civilizations to save me. Not because I was special, but they knew what I would become, someone who was so afraid of pain that I had stopped living. Caleb moved forward, and Marcus showed me what my people have forgotten, that observation without participation is not wisdom. It is cowardness as noble language. It is not a weakness to get rid of that feeling deeply. It is a strength to embrace. That connection isn't distraction from your goal. It's the very heart of your goal. Questions came in quick succession. How did they talk to each other? What was Caleb's world like? Would more watchers show up? What did this mean for the future of humanity? But the most important question came from a young reporter in the back. What do you want people to learn from your story? Marcus and Caleb looked at each other. Marcus gave an answer. That can always change. That the walls we put up to keep ourselves safe often turn into prisons. The person or the thing that seems most different from you might be exactly what you need. And that love, in all its form, is the bravest choice we can make. Caleb said, whether it's love for friends, family, or just love for life. My people learned to fear the covenant. Marcus taught me to accept it. After the press conference, people from 27 countries asked for private meetings. Someone wanted to make friends with people of Caleth. Others wanted to learn how to travel between stars. Some people wanted to know how to make societies that were less likely to break up. Marcus became a diplomat against his will. He talked to military leaders about the real cost of war. He talked to groups of veterans about how he went from being alone to being connected. He even went to Congress to talk about how important it is for soldiers to get mental health support. I thought I've done my service, Marcus told Kelly one tired night. Turns out it was just the start. Kelly said, you're good at this. Dad would be proud. I'm scared of this, but I'm going to do it anyway. This is what Caleb taught me. At the same time, Caleb was making a difference. The alien kept sending messages to Covenant, and each one was a challenge to their belief. Other watchers started to respond, first in private and then in public. More and more younger watchers were joining a movement. These were the ones who had seen something in human culture that their elders had missed. One night, a watcher named Sorrel sent a message. The message said, your actions have caused a lot of trouble, but also a lot of hope. Some of us have been questioning the covenant for a long time. You have given us the courage to speak. It's happening, Caleb said, its patrons swirling with excitement. Things are going to change in Velthros. Are you prepared for that? Marcus asked. What are you afraid of? And excited. Did you feel this way when you said yes to the first press conference? Pretty much, yes. They laughed together. Two people from worlds that couldn't be more different because they found out that hope is stronger than fear. But not everyone was on board. People who were afraid of alien influence, conspiracies, theorists who said it was all a hoax, and religious groups who said Galeth was a demon, and all made threats. It was necessary to have security. The government gave out protection. Some people will always be afraid of change, Marcus said as he read another hateful email. Yes, but more people are accepting it. Check out the numbers. There are 10 voices of hope for every voice of fear. That is the ratio that makes a difference in the world. Caleb was correct. Help came from all over the world. Kids sent in pictures of people and aliens holding hands. Artists made things based on their stories. People who played music wrote songs. There was a movement growing, and it wasn't just about first contact. It was also about getting rid of all kinds of isolation. 3 weeks after the press conference, something amazing happened. The Covenant sent a different group, but this time it wasn't Nethys. The ship arrived at dawn. One watcher came out of it, and its patterns were unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. They were bright and swirled with colors that made him feel deeply. The watcher said, I am Sorrel. I don't come to judge, I come to learn. Keleth, Marcus Webb, will you show me what you found? Marcus and Caleb looked at each other and knew how important this moment was. The covenant was breaking, not breaking, but opening, one brave watcher at a time. Yes, Caleb said, we'll show you how. We will learn together while we teach. That's what friends do. The patterns on Sorrels got brighter. Friends, I want to fully understand this idea. Pull up a chair, Marcus said with a smile. We have a lot to talk about. When Sorrel walked into the cabin, Marcus thought about how far they had come. They had gone from being two lonely people trying to stay alive to being teachers, ambassadors, and symbols of what connection could do. They were putting up the bridges between different kinds, between ideas, in between a cold past and warm future. And what? That was just the start. Winter turned into spring, and Marcus' cabin had changed. What started out as a place to be alone had turned into a center for interstellar diplomacy. Sorrel was the first, but not the last. In the next 3 months, 12 more watchers came, and each one questioned the covenant and tried to figure out what Caleb had found. But there was a cost to progress. The Covenant's leaders, worried about the growing opposition, called Caleb, and everyone who followed him corrupted and unworthy of their status. They sent in forces called Watchers, who were completely loyal to the old ways, to Earth with an ultimatum: come back for recalibration or be permanently exiled and called a roach. Sarah showed Caleb the intercepted messages and said, they're trying to make an example of you. Make contact with people. Look like contamination. Let them try. Caleb said, every watcher who comes here leaves with questions. They can't stop asking. Every conversation makes the covenant's foundation less stable. They can't stop this by threatening. But the threats got worse. The enforcers didn't just go after Caleb. They started watching the other watchers who had come to Earth. They were forcibly called back and reset. Their minds changed. Their new understanding of connection was gone. When they found out about this, Marcus saw Caleb's patterns fade. Caleb said quietly, those were my friends, people I helped wake up, and now they're gone. I'm so sorry. This is the price. I knew it was going to happen, but knowing doesn't make it easier. Marcus saw Caleb really cry for the first time ever since they met. The alien went back to the woods behind the cabin and stayed there for 2 days. Marcus gave Caleb some space, but he was close enough to help if he needed it. When Caleb finally came out, its patterns were darker. but somehow more clear. Caleb said, I see now what you meant about your war, about choices that are impossible, about seeing friends hurt because of choices you made. Marcus said firmly, It's not your fault, isn't it? I stood up to the Covenant. They did what I did, and now they have to pay the price. No, the Covenant is pushing them out of fear because your movement is getting bigger, because change could take away their power. That's their problem, not yours. But if I had stayed quiet, then nothing would change. Always. And for the next 1,000 years, every watcher would live the half life you got away from. You let them choose, Caleb. The Covenant's cruelty is what they do to those who chose differently, not yours. For a long time, Caleb didn't say anything. Then, in a low voice, how do you deal with it? The weight of those you couldn't save. I don't. Not by yourself. That's where you connect, right? We help each other with our problems. You don't have to feel guilty all by yourself. Caleb finally understood what Marcus had been trying to teach him. Connection wasn't just about being happy together, it was about sharing pain, sadness, and the heavy burden of caring deeply in a world that often punished such caring. But the Covenant wasn't the only thing that was hard. There were political divisions on Earth. Some countries saw the Watcher's technology as a chance to get ahead and wanted to make exclusive deals with them. Some people were afraid of what it would mean for a species that could see without being seen. The fear grew. There was a summit. 40 countries sent representatives to Geneva, along with Caleb and 5 other watchers who had publicly left the Covenant. They met to set up official rules for how humans and watchers should interact. Marcus went at Caleb's lawyer, even though he felt completely out of place among diplomats and world leaders. But Sarah had taught him. She had said, You're not a diplomat. You are living proof that this works. Just tell the truth. There was a lot of tension at the summit. There were heated arguments about sovereignty, sharing technology, and the morality of watching. But the most important moment came when a Chinese delegate asked what the watchers wanted from Earth. Caleb stood up to answer, We don't want anything from you. We can only share what we've learned. That being alone, whether it's between people or civilizations, makes us all worse off. Your kind is at crossroads. You can still separate yourselves by country, by beliefs, or by fear of being different. You can also choose to connect, not blind unity that takes away what makes us unique, but conscious cooperation that honors it. Easy words from a being who can travel between stars. A Russian delegate said in response, You have power that we don't. Power? Caleb's pattern flickered with a kind of sadness. I had technology you can only dream of for 500 years. I could go from one galaxy to another in seconds. I could see things that are beyond your imagination. But I couldn't do the one thing that Marcus Webb could do without any technology. I couldn't make a real connection. I couldn't love. I didn't feel like I was important outside of my job. The ability to care deeply, to make a big change, to grow beyond what you were programmed to do. Marcus also stood. I wasn't anything special before this, just a soldier who is hurt and hiding in the woods. I didn't have any technology. I didn't have any power. I was just willing to let someone in, and it made something different, not just for me, but it seemed like a lot of the galaxy too. That's not about having power, that's about having options. No matter where we came from or what we can do, we all have that power. We just need to be brave enough to use it. The room was quiet. Then, out of nowhere, the Kenyan delegate started to clap. More people joined, Not all, but a lot. The summit didn't fix everything. There were still disagreements, but it set up the Geneva Accords, which are rules for how people on Earth and any other species that want to make contact can get along peacefully. It was the Watchers who lived as refugees looking for asylum. It also put money into learning, not just about alien technology, but also about alien philosophy. It was a start. Marcus and Caleb sat on the porch of the cabin, just like they had done so many times before. But now, more watchers came to join them. Sorrel brought news of more people leaving. Thralis talked about secret groups on Velthros. Quantum shared reports of other species who were watching the situation with interest. We've started something that can't be stopped, Marcus said. Yes, Caleb agreed. But the Covenant won't give up easily. They have something planned. I can feel it. Let them make plans. We will deal with whatever comes our way. Together. Marcus, on the other hand, was worried. The cost had already been high. 3 watchers were reset. Threats made against him and his family. Visions on Earth. He sometimes thought that they might have caused more trouble than they healed. Kelly came over one night and found him brooding. What's wrong? I'm just thinking about whether or not we did the right thing. There is so much fighting, a lot of fear. The Covenant might be right that connections can lead to destruction. Marcus, look at me. Do you remember what you were like before Caleb came? I was getting by. You were dying. Not very fast, in a safe way, but dead. Now look at you. You're back to life. You have a reason to be. You're making a difference. Yes, it is hard. Yes, this is opposition. But the other option was that you would fade away in this cabin, alone and forgotten. Tell me the truth. If you could, would you go back to that? Marcus thought about the days that were empty, the deafening silence, and the slow loss of self. No, never. Then you did the right thing. It always cost a lot to be brave, but the price of being a coward is higher. It just takes longer to pay. Marcus gave his sister a hug. When did you become so smart? I've always been smart. You weren't paying attention before. Caleb saw Marcus still on the porch that night. Kelly's right. You know, about bravery and money? I get it. But that doesn't make it easier. No, it doesn't. Caleb sat next to him. I've been thinking about the people who were recalibrated, about whether their sacrifice was worth it. And I think they would say yes, because they lived more fully in the short time. They felt a real connection than they had in all the centuries before. The Covenant can make them forget about those times, but it can't make them not have happened. That they were important, that they changed the world, even if they don't remember doing it anymore. That's a lovely way to look at it. I got it from you. You honor those who have died by remembering them, by living in a way that honors their sacrifice. We will do the same for our friends who have died. We will keep working on this. We will show that what they pick was worth picking. They sat in silence and looked at the stars. The Covenant was making plans for how to respond somewhere out there. Other species were watching and wondering from somewhere out there. The future was being written somewhere out there, and 2 friends, one human and one alien, got ready to face whatever came next. They knew that being brave would cost a lot, but they couldn't stand the other option anymore. It took place on a Tuesday. 17 ships came down from the sky above Marcus' cabin. This was the largest Covenant fleet to ever visit Earth. But they weren't by themselves. 7 other types of ships followed them, including 2 that human had never seen before. The message was clear. This was no longer just about a bad watcher and a human veteran. This was about the future of connection itself. High Arbiter Nethys was the first to appear, but there were also beings next to them that Marcus couldn't name. They were representatives from civilizations all over the galaxy. Kalith knew right away who was at the center of this group. Velios, Kalith said, the first watcher, the person who wrote the covenant. Marcus' stomach dropped. Yes, the one who started all this, and the only one who can end it, even by Watcher's standards. Velios was very old. Its glowing patrons moved like slow rivers, carrying the weight of thousands of years. Everyone else stopped talking when it spoke. I have seen what you have done from a distance, young Caleb. I have seen this person. I have seen the chaos you have caused, not only in our civilization, but in many others as well. The question we need to answer now is simple. Is this disruption making things worse or better? Marcus said. That depends on how you look at it, surprising himself by being the first to speak. If you want things to stay the same forever, then yes, this is destruction. But if your goal is really to gain wisdom and understanding, then this is the change you've been too scared to let happen. You are brave for someone so young and limited, Valios said, without malice. I've been around long enough to know that fears that looks like tradition is still fear. And I know I'm limited enough to know that you can get past any limit if you're willing to try. Valios looked at Caleb with those old eyes. And you, young one, you have questioned everything our people have believed for thousands of years. What makes you so sure? I'm not sure, Caleb said. Just experience. The feeling of dying slowly under the weight of the covenant, and then being reborn through connection. Seeing Marcus choose life over comfortable death. Seeing what happens when two beings from far away choose to see each other as more than just subjects and observers, but as friends. Friendship! Valio said the word like he was tasting it. A thought we put aside a long time ago. And by setting it aside, we set aside our own hearts. Caleb said in response, I have read your first writing. First Watcher, the Covenant wasn't meant to get rid of feelings. It was meant to keep feelings from being harmful while keeping wisdom. But at some points, over the course of thousands of years, we forgot the second part. We threw away the warmth with the fire. For the first time, values patterns changed. What a surprise! Recognition? You have read the original text. Every word you wrote. Let us clearly, but never forgot what we see. Life in all its messy, beautiful, impossible glory. 3,000 years ago, that sentence was taken out of the covenant. Why? The delegates who had came together whispered. Nathis even looked shocked. It seems that this part of history had been buried deep. There was a long pause before Velio spoke. Because those who came after me thought that any recognition of beauty was a sign of attachment. They changed my words to get rid of what they thought was weak. But it wasn't a sign of weakness. That was the whole point. No, Velio said in a soft voice. It wasn't weakness. But I didn't have the guts to stand up for it when others asked. I let my covenant become something I never meant for it to be. I let fear turn wisdom into loneliness, and I have felt that regret for thousands of years. The revelation hung in the air like a confession. The person who made the covenant admits that it is corrupt. One of the alien delegates, who looked like a crystal being, spoke in a voice that sounded like glass singing. We, of the harmonic conversions, have been very interested in this situation. We also thought that being emotionally detached made things pure. We made a civilizations based only on logic. It almost killed us. Another delegate, who was from a species called the empaths, said, "We build the civilizations based only on feelings, without any structure or observation. It almost killed us too. You don't find balance by choosing one or the other. You find it by combining both." Marcus could feel the moment changing. There was no longer a trial, it was a talk, a galaxy wide discussion about the most important question of all: how can we live fully without being destroyed by our ability to feel? "Can I say something?" Kelly's voice rang out. She had been standing at the edge of the group with Richard and the kids, but now she moved forward. "I'm just a teacher from Colorado. A lot of what's being talked about here doesn't make sense to me, but I do know my brother." She walked over to Marcus. "I saw him die inside 3 years ago. Not in a physical way, but in every other way that counts." He stopped laughing. He gave up hope. He stopped thinking he had anything to give to the world. The war had taken everything from him. So he decided that the safest thing to do was to take the rest himself. He wanted to get away from everything so that nothing could hurt him again. Kelly's voice cracked a little, and I couldn't get to him. None of us could, because he made it impossible for them to reach him. Then Caleb showed, an alien from another galaxy, with rules that were even stricter than the ones my brother made for himself. And somehow they got to each other. They helped each other. They didn't choose to care with technology or power. They chose to care with the simplest thing in the world. She turned to Velios. "I don't know if your covenant is good or bad, but I know that whatever made my brother stop caring almost killed him, and whatever made him care again and gave him his life back. I'll choose dangerous over safe any day if that's what it is." Danny, Marcus' nephew, ran up to Marcus and hugged his leg. "Uncle Marcus is the best one. He plays with us, makes us laugh, and tells us stories. He used to be like a ghost. Now he's real again." Emma went with her brother. "And Caleb tells us about the stars. Real stars, with real things going on. Reading about them in books is not as good as this." Marcus couldn't quite figure out what Valios was thinking as he watched the kids. Then, for the first time ever, the old watcher knelt down to their level. "You are very wrong," Valios said softly. "Do you get what we're talking about?" Danny said. "Not really, but I know that Caleb is nice and that Uncle Marcus likes him. Isn't that enough?" "Out of the mouth of children," Valios said as he stood up. "Maybe that's all it takes. Maybe it has always been enough, and we have just made the truth too hard to see." Nathis stepped up, clearly not happy with the conversation was going. "First Watcher, we can't change thousands of years of doctrine based on stories and feelings. The Covenant exists for protection." Valios cut in. "Yes, Nathis, I understand. I wrote it. Don't you remember? But what are you protecting yourself from? From the pain of being connected? From the chance of losing? From the chance of change?" The ancient watcher's patterns swirled with something that looked like determination. "I have lived for more than 5,000 of years. High Arbiter, I have seen the rise and fall of civilizations. I have seen too many amazing and terrible things to count. And I can say for sure that the worst thing that can happen is not destruction through passion, but slow death through avoidance. Valios turned to talk to everyone who was there. Marcus Webb and Caleb have not broken anything. They have brought to light a truth we buried, that seeing something without doing something about is not wise. That documentation, devoid of comprehension, does not constitute knowledge. Being alive without connecting is not life. Then what do you suggest? Nath has asked, sounding almost desperate. I suggest we remember what we forgot, that we get back to the original purpose of what covenant, which was to find balance, not to get rid of things. We should look at not only what Marcus and Caleb have done, but also how they did it, that we learn from our mistakes instead of making excuses for them. Sorrel stepped out of the group of watchers who had turned traitors. First watcher, what happens to those of us who were called Rods if the covenant changes? Rods, Velio's patrons got brighter, almost like they were having fun. You weren't a Rods, you were the first. You were the first to go into a place that the rest of us were too scared to go. This is not rebellion, it's a leadership. People at the meeting started talking. Delegates from different species talked about their own experiences with being alone and being connected. People who had stayed loyal started to doubt their certainty. People in the crowd talked about their own problems with feeling disconnected in a world that is becoming more and more digital. Marcus was in the middle of something much bigger than he had ever thought possible. What began as two lonely people finding each other had turned into cosmic turning point. Caleb went to stand next to Marcus. It said softly, "We did this. We changed everything for better or worse." For better, Marcus said firmly. Definitely for the better. No matter how messy it is, especially since it's messy, Caleb said. Perfection is the enemy of growth. As the sun set on that amazing day, Valios made an announcement. There would be changes to the covenant, not given up on, but brought back to what it was meant to do. People who watch would be taught to both watch and take part, to record and get involved, to be aware and to feel. It would take some time. People would fight back, but the path was clear. That night, after the delegates went home and the ships went back into the orbit, Marcus sat on his porch with Caleb, Kelly, and the other watchers who had become friends. Do you think it will really work? I don't know, Caleb said. But we did it. We did give it a chance. That is more than what was there yesterday. Uncle Marcus? Danny yelled from the door. Will Caleb have to leave now? I'm not going anywhere, Caleb said. I have found a place to live here with friends. Emma ran outside and hugged Caleb's leg, just like Danny had done to Marcus earlier. Good, because you are now part of our family. Marcus saw his niece and nephew play with the alien that had saved his life, and for the first time in years, he felt pure, simple joy, not the absence of pain, but the presence of meaning, not getting rid of fear, but having courage. The convergence had taken place. Civilizations had come together. Philosophers had fought and come together. But underneath it all was something very simple. It was worth the risk to connect. Being vulnerable was worth the warmth. Love, in all its forms, was worth everything. 6 months later, Marcus spoke in front of 10,000 people in Geneva. He had been asked to give the opening speech at the first Interstellar Cooperation Summit, which was about to start. Next to him were Caleth, Sorel, Velios, and people from 15 other species. But today wasn't about making deals or setting rules. There was something more important going on today. I'm not a speaker, Marcus said, and his voice echoed across the plaza. I'm not a philosopher or a diplomat. I spent 3 years hiding in the woods because the world was too painful for me. An alien from another galaxy looked at me and thought that one needs help. That's how broken I was. People in the crowd laughed. Caleth saved my life, but not by fixing me, healing me, or showing me some deep truth that I had been missing. Caleb saved me by being willing to break the most important rule of their whole civilization. For one simple reason, they saw someone in pain and thought there was more important than any old law. Marcus stopped for a moment to think. We talk a lot about what this moment means for people. First meeting, relationship between stars, the future of human civilization. But I think we're missing the point. This isn't about moving forward, making progress or technology. This is about something that has been around longer than any of the species here. This is about getting credit, understanding that pain is important, that being alone kills, that links make things better, that the person next to you, whether they're from Earth, Velthros, or another world, is not so different from you that you can't understand them. We are all in the same fight. How do we live fully in a universe that guarantees pain? How do we let people into our hearts when we know they could break them? How do we choose to be vulnerable when it seems safer to be protected? Kelly moved up to Marcus. I can now answer that question, but I couldn't 6 months ago. We chose to be vulnerable because the other option is not protection, it is death. Not fast, not seen, done. The covenant taught my people to watch without feelings and to live without connecting. We thought this was smart, but we weren't smart. We were just scared. The next person to speak was Valios, whose voice was very old and could be heard all over the plaza. For 5,000 years, I thought I had given my people the best gift protection from the chaos of emotion. Instead, I had given them a different kind of chaos the chaos of not having a point, the chaos of living without a purpose other than just living. The colors in the first watch's patterns swirled around in ways that made it look like they were feeling a lot. Marcus Webb and Caleb have given us all a gift that is better than any other technology. They have told us it's okay to care again. You have permission to feel again, the right to live again, not without thinking, but on purpose. Not in a bad way, but in a good way. They have shown us that cold promises were never our strength. They were our fear, pretending to be pride. Marcus watched as people from different worlds talked about their own journeys to their understanding one by one. The harmonic who had always put logic above else until their society almost fell apart because everyone was sad. The keepers had valued tradition so much that they hadn't changed in hundreds of years until they had to because of contact with the outside world. The wanderers had cared so much about their own freedom that they had forgot how to work together. Each type of animal had its own version of the covenant. Every society had its own cold promises, and they were all learning together. That warmth wasn't the enemy, fear of warmth was. Marcus went back to his cabin after the opening ceremonies. It was no longer alone. A small group of people had formed around him. Watcher who had moved to Earth, human scientists who were studying how to work together across space, and families who had been inspired by Marcus and Caleb's stories to get back in touch with each other. Kelly and her family had moved into a house close by. Danny and Emma spent most afternoons with Caleb, learning about faraway places and teaching the alien about the amazing things on Earth, like ice cream, thunderstorms, and the best skipping stones. Sarah Chan won a journalism award for her work on the first contact story. She had used the platform to push for more mental health resources for veterans, saying that Marcus' change had inspired her. After seeing the news coverage, Thomas, a friend from Marcus' unit who had lost his legs, got in touch. They had talked for 3 hours, both crying and healing, and finally being able to say what they had been keeping inside for years. As the shooting stars crossed the sky, Marcus made a wish, just like he did when he was kid, dreaming of space. But this time, he didn't wish for himself. It was for everyone he had ever met, including humans, watchers, harmonics, and other beings. He wanted to be brave enough to keep making connections even when it was hard. Marcus, Caleb said in a low voice, "Thanks. For what?" "Thank you for letting me in when you could have easily kept me out. For reminding me of things my people had forgotten. For showing me that universe is not just a place to look at, but a place to fully, messily, and beautifully live." Marcus had tears in his eyes, tears of joy, tears that heal. "Thanks for seeing me when I couldn't see myself, for caring when everyone else in your civilization told you not to, for having the guts to break every rule that mattered to save someone who wasn't even human." Maybe that's ultimate truth, Caleb thought. Species, origin, and form are not as important as the fact that we are both alive, aware, and able to see each other as more than just things or function. We are living things, and beings need other beings. That sounds like something Valios would say. We taught Valios from you, in particular. This is the beautiful paradox. The student becomes the teacher, and the student again. Knowledge does not flow in hierarchies, but in circles. Marcus and Caleb made their way back down to the cabin as the mountain was completely dark. Marcus Webb and Caleb had not found friendship. They had sparked a revolution of the heart, a cosmic shift from isolation to integration, a new understanding that would ripple across galaxies for generations to come. And it all started with the simplest act imaginable: two lonely beings deciding that each other mattered. That was enough. It had always been enough, and it would always be enough. The end was really just the beginning, and the beginning was beautiful.